Hello, this is Mark Sinakori, and I'm going to be talking about my friendship with one of my best friends from my Lawrence, Mass. Wilmot Street neighborhood back in the late 1980s, Stefanie. Stefanie lived on Wilmot Street with me I'll say around 1984, 85. I didn't know her personally because I couldn't really go outside. I couldn't be around anybody, just my dad. I was too small to go out. We were both too small. She was born in October of 1983. So she was a toddler, a little baby when she was living in the neighborhood at the beginning. And she lived upstairs from my friends Lauren and Tracy, who were a little older than us. So it wasn't until maybe I'll say 1988 or so in the summer I got to know her, but I didn't really know her. And then in the summer of 1989, that's when we started hanging out a lot more because I was getting older. I was able to go out more and I was able to stay out more. I didn't have to be around my parents 24/7 when I was in my neighborhood as I was getting older. So in the summer of 1989, I had just finished, it was first grade. And we were outside on each other's stoops. We were on her stoop, her porch at night. And all the parents were gathering over there. And I was playing with some of my friends, Tracy, Karen, and then she was there with us. And then we got to be good friends. But we had competition with one another. Oh, we had so much competition. My friend Tracy was about 3 years older than me, 4 years older than me, and she would provoke us. Oh, I'm going to see who's going to be the red light teller. Run to the post first. Whoever gets it is red light teller. So me and Stefanie would run. She'd push me aside, and then we'd quarrel, we'd struggle, and then we'd always end up fighting or pushing each other or something in that sort of way, callous way. I mean, it wasn't all fun and games. It was fun games and some, physical violence with each other. And it was all due to Tracy. Tracy would provoke us all the time. Stefanie's dad, Scott, he'd always get the kids to play baseball on the street. That was something we all loved to do. But Stefanie broke the rules of baseball many a time. I think I even did too. So that was summer of 89. There was drama mixed into the comedy though. At first, I wasn't best friends with her. I was feeling that, oh my God, we're like best friends, but we weren't officially best friends. And then as the summer went on, after all the drama that happened because of Tracy and other factors, I was like, you want to be best friends? Okay. But we'd always fight with one another over the stupidest things. And it was always Tracy would provoke us. I'm going to throw this bow and arrow into the air. Whoever catches it gets it. I won the bow. Hey, she slugged me one. Stefanie slugged me one. I slugged her back. Oh my gosh. We would always fight over the stupidest things. And this was up until third grade in 1991 in the spring. We would fight over the stupidest things. And it would always end with me really slugging her back and then her crying. But I got my share of hurt too with her. But as I've said, it wasn't our doing. It was Tracy's doing. Tracy would mostly provoke us. And then in the winter of 1992, the Littles across the street, Harold and Helen, moved to the Fortuna farm in Andover after Helen's aunt gave her the farm. So she was aging, and Helen was going to move there with Harold, and they were going to watch her while they inherited the building, the farm. So Helen's daughter upstairs was Lisa Smith. They moved downstairs, and then Stefanie moved from Larry's house, which was Lauren and Tracy's house as well, his kids. They moved from Larry's house to Helen and Harold Little's house upstairs, where Lisa lived. I believe it was in the spring of 1992. So they moved there, and they stayed there the next couple of years. Scott was a little bit upset with me. I remember I'd always want to sit in the front seat of the car when I was a kid. I hate doing that now, but I mean, I always wanted to do that for one reason only. And I never told people. I'm like, I was scared because my dad would drive down Park Street taking my mom to work, and I would just feel safer sitting next to him than sitting in the back seat. I was afraid someone was going to come in and attack us or something. That's why I always sat in the front seat. So Scott kind of kept this in. But then I also had a mouth for myself because I lived next door to the Haddad family, and the guys, Bassam and Ronnie, they were 8, 9 years older than me. They would always swear, so I'd always pick that up. So in 6th grade, I went from the Rowan School to Holy Trinity because everybody was going there. Everybody in the neighborhood went there. And it was at this time, Scott just had enough of me. I swear to Stefanie all the time, and we cuss one another. But she wasn't really a swearing type of girl. She'd fight with me, but she wasn't really a swearing type of girl. Me, I'd always, use all these names people knew, and I learned on Melrose Place, and Scott got mad. But then he'd also be he told my dad, he goes, I don't like how he's always sitting in the front seat, and his mother has to sit in the back. So we separated in the fall of 1993. It was for most of the fall, September, October. And then November, we got back together as friends. And I remember I talked to Scott, and Scott was don't say those words. Some of those words you say, they're really, really bad. They're words no one should say my age. And I learned them mostly from Melrose Place, not from Bassam and Ronnie. And it was weird because every time Stefanie would upset me, I'd always swear at her something I learned from Melrose Place. So then Stefanie's grandparents were Ann and Joe. And they were the nicest people. Oh my gosh, they were the nicest. They were from Lawrence originally. And then Joe, they retired, I believe. And Joe and Ann, they moved to Florida, I believe, when he retired, around I think it was, or I forget. It was the early 90s. And then Stefanie and her mom visited down there. They loved it. And then it was around, I believe it was early 91, they moved back to Lawrence. And they lived a few houses up from us on Durant Street. And they were just the nicest people. And then they lived there from 1991, I believe, until 1994. And they moved back to Florida. They decided to retire for good to Florida. And that was the deciding fact that made Stefanie's parents, Diane and Scott, say, we're moving the family down to Florida to be with my parents. Stefanie had a younger brother, Scotty, and a younger sister, Samantha. So by this time, Scotty was already out of kindergarten, and Samantha was almost in preschool age when they moved. They moved on July 16th, 1994, to Ormond Beach, Florida. And with the drama that was going on in the neighborhood at the time between me and several other kids, I didn't get to say goodbye to her. And then when she wrote to me a few weeks later, she sent me a postcard. She said, I know I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye. But then she told me why. She's like, I didn't want you to cry. I didn't want to see you cry because I would have cried. So she had returned that fall of 1994 when I was that spring of 1995 when I was in 7th grade in March. She went to one of her aunt's weddings. And then I believe she returned again in 1996. I think it was June, the end of June or early July. And then she returned one last time. I started one time then. But when she returned the first time in '95, I didn't really see her. We only hung out like a little bit. Then in '96, I think we hung out one day, and then she came back in 1997 in August. It was right after both of my grandfathers died. So she stayed a few weeks, and her parents went to, I believe, Canada or somewhere for a couple of days, and then she was there for my birthday. She was there. I celebrated my 15th birthday with her on August 16th, 1997. And I was like, let's go to Canopy Lake. Let's go to Canopy Lake at night. But we did not end up going. We ended up going to see my grandmother on my dad's side. Because she was all alone after my grandfather died. But we went to Romano's that night, and it was ironic because we live right next door to Romano's now. We moved there in 2001 on Newbury Avenue. And that was the last time I saw Stefanie in person. When we moved to Newbury Avenue in 2002, I think it was in the early spring or so, they had came back for, I think our grandmother died or something. I think our grandmother had passed away. And I told her, where are you? I can pick you up. I have a car now. I'm driving. But I never got to see her. That was the only other time I could have seen her. And I didn't get to see her that time. And then after that point, I had moved to Los Angeles. And when she made another trip back home, I think it was like in the maybe early 2010s with her husband at the time and her family. And I wasn't home by the time to see them. So the last time I saw Stefanie in person was on my 15th birthday on August 16th, 1997. So that's a little bit of my friendship with my best friend Stefanie, who's one of my several best friends in life. I have several. I don't have a lot of friends in life. I have mostly close or best friends. Very few, but they're very close and they're very good friends of mine. A few fun facts I forgot to mention about me and Stefanie is that we loved watching television and film together. We loved it. I always had her over the house. We'd always watch Disney movies, Babes in Toyland, Winnie the Pooh. My dad took us to go see the Flintstones movie together before she moved. And when we were at her house, mostly when we were home from school or in the summer months or whatever, her mom would always watch ABC daytime soaps. So we were always hanging out, watching those with her in the living room. Other than that, we'd always swing on my swings back in my backyard. We'd play dolls because she had Barbies. We'd always think up storylines for Melrose Place with them. Like, oh, I'll be Billy, you'll be Jane, we'll pretend we're dating now, the characters will be dating, which they never did at the time when we were pretending to be them. We played school, we played house, and it was in the summer of 1993. After I finished 5th grade, boy, that was a dramatic-filled summer. I lent her my Game Boy to use because she didn't have one at the time, and I kept nagging her, I need it back. She had it for a few weeks. I'm like, I need it back. And then I remember I was in my bedroom, and I think I was sick in bed with the flu or something. I was a fever, and they were putting the construction guys were putting new linoleum and rugs in our house at the time. So while that was going on, I was looking out the window. She was in my next door neighbor's yard on her skates, her roller skates. I said, if you fall and hit the window and break it, you're going to pay for it. And we were like, I was always like, we were threatening each other, things like stuff like that at the time, just like for fun, So ironically, she lost her balance. She fell. Her foot fell through the cellar window, smashed it everywhere. And then I'm like, Dad! And then she just got up and hid. I'm like, Dad, she broke the window. I'm like, Stefanie, you're going to pay for this. And then everything was forgiven though. My dad talked to her mom, and her mom was like, oh, no, I'll pay for it. And my dad goes, no, that's okay. But I forget, she might have given him a couple of dollars, and he put plexiglass or something. But then the Game Boy was still an issue. And I was like, give me my Game Boy back. Why aren't you giving it back? So she was across the street at her house. She comes across the street with the Game Boy in a market basket plastic bag, walks on the porch, didn't say one word to me, shoves it in my face, and it hit my eye. So I could say Stefanie gave me a black eye when I was a kid. She walks off, and then 20 minutes later, she calls me, I'm sorry I did that. I know I was wrong. But you were making me so upset. I'm like, I know, we always make each other upset. And one other dramatic issue that happened that summer, it was a funny issue. We were playing Mommy and Son in my dad's car. I brought her over my Nona's house, my Nona's house on Derry Road in Methuen. And we were in the car playing Mommy and Son. And she said something to me. She was the mother, I was the son. And she just smacked a quick kiss near the lips at me. And I was like, oh my God, you like me. And then she's like, no, it's an accident, oh my God. So she kind of was like my first kiss, but not. I mean, that actual first French kiss was I met Funicello's niece in 2008. But yeah, that's how it was. And we loved 90210. We loved Melrose Place. We watched only one episode of Melrose Place together. It was the night Marcia Cross's character returned to the show in season 2, when Michael and Sydney were kissing in the living room at the beach house, and the camera pans back, and there's Kimberly. I'm like, there's a woman stalking them. I'm like, it's Kimberly. She's back from the dead. And that's when Melrose Place officially went insane. Really insane at that time. And that was what gave me the love to want to move to LA someday and work in TV and film. I remember me and Stefanie, we watched that on our spring vacation when I was in 6th grade and she was in 4th grade at Holy Trinity. So those are just a few fun facts about me and my best friend Stefanie.